Yasenka or Sandra, if you could admit people into the waiting room as they come in, because I might miss them.
I'm doing that. Okay.
Excellent, thank you. Right, okay. So let's have a little bit of a lesson brief. It's standard sort of teaching practice, but we have been through a lot of this already, so I'm not going to really dwell on it. Again, you've all been through this. LMS, let's have a quick look at the LMS to see where, if people are actually registering on the LMS and actually going on the system. So remember, I can monitor to see whether you're there. I have this all-seeing eye. And yeah, we've got people who are coming on the system. There's still some who aren't, but there are some people who were invited and were enrolled who have not gone on the system and haven't actually joined us. If you have any colleagues who haven't actually come on this course, but then later on want to look at it, then let them know that it will be available for quite a while, and they can still go on and look at the videos of these sessions as well. So we've got a few coming on. Okay. So people are getting the hang of the LMS. That's good. Okay. And then there's this as well, assignment 2. Okay, I'm going to have a quick look at assignment 2. We're not going to talk about assignment 2 today because it's only half of the task that I've given you. And I know some people have come back and they've said it didn't have enough time to really apply a lot of thought to this. But there are 3 submissions that have come in hopefully from the 3 syndicates that we've got. So that would be great. I've not looked at them yet because, as I say, we're not going to talk about this yet. Tonight, I'm going to give you the second half of the assignment, which is the other half of the culture map. There are 8 indicators on the culture map. And then on Monday, we're going to seriously look at organizational culture. Because as I said in the last session, culture eats strategy for breakfast. We can have all these fantastic ideas of how we're going to manage stuff, and we can read all best practice books from the US and from China or whatever, but everywhere, every organization, every country has its own cultural setup, cultural framework, which does impinge quite significantly on management culture. And that therefore impinges significantly on the way you can actually manage your communication. Okay, so thank you very much for those assignments. On Monday I will look at those with you and also look at tonight's assignment as well. Okay, so that's where we're going to be going with that. I'm just going to open it, Ziliana. Okay, so let's press on. There we see. Oh, and someone's put a nice little star on the screen there. Someone's messing around with annotation. Module objectives, they haven't changed. Yeah. Any of you who've done the pre-course survey will have seen them already, and you'll have registered a score, a self-reporting score against that. What are we going to be doing today? Right, I'm just going to do something first. I'm going to clear. Oh, no, I'm not. I am going to just clear the drawings. There we go. So they're not distracting us on the screen. Okay. That's what we're looking at today. Even though it's all these objectives, they're going to be mingled in throughout the whole course. There'll be a little bit of this we did last time, a little bit of this we'll do in the next 2 sessions as well. So they do all mingle together. Okay. Right. Last time, we really looked at the strategic communication elements, especially looking around policy alignment and how, at the strategic level, as communicators, we should really be ensuring that we are keyed in to the strategic and policy elements of the institutions that you're working for. Yeah, if you're not, then you're always going to be second guessing what you're meant to be doing, and ultimately ending more reactive than proactive. Yeah. So just as a recap to get you thinking, yeah, last time we talked about the strategic level area of communication management. As a recap, I'm going to ask for 3 of you just to give a quick recap and what were the main learning points or discussion points or thinking points that we went through last time. So volunteers, for 3 people who are briefly, literally 1 or 2 minutes, are going to just give us a quick recap of what happened last time. So who wants to go first before I volunteer someone? Anybody? Or am I going to have to nominate someone?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll nominate someone. I'll nominate someone who, and this is totally random, but it's someone who's actually center of my video thing, and it's I think it's Daria. Daria, yeah, you're right in the middle of my video screen. So I'm going to volunteer you, and I know you're not shy. You're happy to talk to us. So literally a minute or two, a summary of what you thought, main thinking points, learning points from the last session. What do you think, Daria? Can you give us a quick recap?
Dobar dan svima.
Good morning, everyone. I wrote down immediately what you said in the beginning, that strategy, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I would say that culture can also be a silent killer in the institution if it is not tackled adequately right from the start. It's very important not to neglect the organizational culture element. So I would agree with that strongly. The second thing I remembered when we talked about government policies, do we promote government policies or political communications? That's why that was very interesting for me, given the fine line between the two. And I liked the position of Daniela Page from the government of the Republika Srpska, and I tend to agree with her arguments. If you want me to go on, please say so. I can.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, thank you very much for that. I think actually you made a very good point about the silent killer. That culture can be a silent killer. It can have what we might call sometimes a chilling effect. Yeah, it can dampen down freedom of ideas, of concepts, of approaches. That's a very good point. That actually it can be a silent killer. It can have a chilling effect. And also, yes, you're absolutely right. That fine line between political communications and government communications. And you're right, Daniela did cover it very, very well. I think I'm not sure if Daniela's here with us this morning yet. Anyway, so thank you very much, Daria. Right, okay, who else is going to just give us a quick recap on what they thought? Okay, who's that? I can't quite see. Who just put their hand up there? Yeah, please. I can't see.
Mimi is doing it. Mimi.
Ah, okay. Yes, sorry, Mimi. Yes, Mimi, and then I'm going to go to one of the males, and I'm going to go after Mimi. Mimi, quick, 1 or 2 minutes. Then I'm going to go to Dayan. How's that? Yeah. So Mimi, please.
Naravno, sve ono što je rekla Darija.
Of course, I agree with everything Daria said. And another very important point for me was that we should not focus solely on the strategy, communication strategy, but communicating in a strategic manner. That's also an important point we covered last time. Perhaps this is influenced by the institution I'm coming from, and I'm aware of some of our gaps and deficiencies there. It's possible that's why this stuck with me. Also, another important point is that all communication functions be integrated in one department. I think that's a very important point, and very important for better efficiency. Also, that the person heading the communication department, who is not as much a manager, but someone who is not an operative. I think that's also a very important point. We also talked about how important it is to know and understand your audiences and publics. That is often missing in our communications, or we tend to focus on only one group and neglect all the others. So those would be some of the things I remember.
Great. Thank you very much, Mimi. Yeah, all very relevant items that came from last time. I think what struck me especially, having studied this for years, was and I've seen it many times, happen, is that role, the person who leads, or is in senior, not really the leader, but the senior members of communication staff, they do need to be good managers and not just good operators, good technicians. Yeah. I found, and also it's very difficult if you have someone who comes from a journalist background, or is a spokesperson's background, senior spokesperson. I've seen it often happen where, oh, you're the spokesperson, you can be head of the comms office. And I've seen that go very badly wrong before now, because a good spokesperson is not necessarily a good manager. I've seen it happen, a really good spokesperson who's out of their depth when they're just given a communications office to run as well. So I've seen it work much better when someone says, actually, you're the head spokesperson and you're a really important part of the machine, but you have a comms person who is actually managing the whole operation, and they will use you as a powerful resource. And that can work much better. So just because you've got a really experienced journalist or a very good spokesperson doesn't mean to say that they're automatically going to be good at leading and managing a communications office. Doesn't necessarily flow. Sometimes it works. Sometimes there are very good people who go, yeah, I can do this management because I can bring my experience and my understanding of management together, and it works. So I think that was a very relevant point. Thank you. Okay, Dejan, have you got?
Well, I remember communication models the most, and I remember the exercise of trying to place us on that chart. The audio is very bad, so I'm catching bits and pieces here. And we found ourselves in the first model the most.
Dejan, can you go a little bit closer to the microphone?
Nije dobro. Ček, moram staviti.
Just hang on a minute. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
I can hear you, but I'm not sure He's getting messages in chat to speak up from
Yeah.
other participants.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, from what I gathered, Darren, you were talking about the public the communication models. Would that be right? Yeah. And looking through, you know, they've been generated over the history of looking at communication and public relations, and we all kind of knew what we aspired to. Yeah, the two-way symmetric model. But also recognize that that's probably a utopian standard that we should always, you know, in terms of our management and the way we do our work, we should be aiming for. But in reality, we're probably more looking at the public information and the two-way asymmetric model. But it was good that most people recognized that the press agency and publicity model is now very outdated, really. But there are some institutions in some parts of the world, even in my country, that still try and use that publicity and press agency model, you know, to just really grab attention. Yeah, activist groups still use that model, actually, because it can be effective for them. But for government organizations, for serious organizations, really we should be moving away from that and looking at the asymmetric mechanism, where really we are trying to generate deep understanding and relationships with our key publics, which for a government is pretty much everyone. Yeah, that's where we want to do, and we're not interested in transmission mode. And I said, you know, from that point of view, in a really good communications organization, if anybody in the organization wants to know what the street talk is, what sentiment is out in the public, they would speak to the communications department, because the comms department are the ones that actually are listening a lot to what is going on the ground. Yeah, two-way symmetric. Okay, super. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Let's move on now and start looking at what we're going to be looking at today. Okay. We've done the strategic communications, looking at strategic communications and how management affects that. We're now going to be looking more at the other elements of COM, the communications operating model, yeah, which is predominantly going to be campaigning and media relations. Yeah, that's what it's about. Yeah, probably the busiest and most exciting part of the operating model, really, and actually what most people identify with communications. Yeah, campaigning and media relations, and especially if you link it into the other thing that overlies all your communications, but really really plays into campaigning and media relations, is digital and social media. Yeah, so we're going to be looking at these areas: campaigning and media relations and digital social media, and how they all come together. Yeah, because that's where the action is. Yeah, I'm not saying they're any more important than strategic engagement and internal communication. No, I'm not saying that. But these are the ones that tend to draw the eye of everybody, and ministers certainly are the ones that are most keen on, you know, well, what's happening on our media? What, you know, we're running a campaign. What's happening on digital? Yeah, they're always focused on that. And maybe just forget about strategic engagement. Yeah, and strategic engagement is really a big part of the two-way symmetric model. Let's face it. Yeah, strategic engagement with publics both ways. But this is the one where the action happens. So this is where a lot of management stuff is going on. Okay, a lot of management needs to be done of this. Okay, so let's have a look at modern media first. Before we look at campaigns, modern media comms operations. Okay, this is from and it's been slightly adapted, but this is based upon the UK UK model of media operations. So let's have a look at that. But it is reflected in your handbook, your communications handbook. Yeah. And what I would like to say before we actually look at the actual 5 mechanisms is, let's just think about what we mean by media relations. Yeah. Some of you may have seen this model before. It's called the Piso model in English. Yeah. Media is not just journalism. Yeah. Really, media, as the word says, media, medium. Yeah. And the Piso model posits that we have four parts of media. One is earned media. Yeah. That's the traditional stuff of journalists out there or other influencers out there looking at us, our organization, going, yes, we like what they're saying. We want to engage with them. We want to draw them out. So we're earning their attention. Yeah. So media, influencer relations, or word of mouth, word of click. That what we're doing, what we're seen to be doing, is being picked up. We're earning the respect and attention, yeah, of an audience. Often journalists, but it may be direct to the public. This is the most common one we think of, I think. However, there's also the owned media, yeah, media that we actually own as an organization, yeah, our website, yeah, we have Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, yeah, that we own. It's our channel, YouTube channel, it's ours, where we can put out podcasts, vodcasts, and our own content. Yeah, so we have direct control of this media. Yeah, it's ours to play with. Okay, so they're both earned media and earned and owned, fairly straightforward. Then, of course, we have, if we have resources, we have paid media. Yeah, so standards of advertising. Yeah, where we go and we place, you know, say radio spots, yeah, sponsored content, paid publishing, increasingly op-eds are paid for in newspapers, etc. Yeah, or in magazines, yeah, in consumer media. We are paying to put our content into someone else's media. Yeah. So we're placing it in through a financial transaction, yeah, into media, be it billboards, radio spots, jingles, yeah, whatever. So there's that media. And then finally, the shared media, where we do have a degree of coordination with other people in media space. Yeah. So contributing to social forums which are not owned by ourselves. Yeah. Someone else who's say that, you know, we want to engage in tax reforms. There may be someone else who is conducting a social forum around tax or economic issues. Yeah, especially economic issues. Yeah, LinkedIn is a prime place for that, certainly in the UK, in the US, and parts of Europe. Yeah, discussion groups on LinkedIn. Yeah, very important that major organizations can access those forums, some of which are behind paywalls, some of which are tightly controlled, but we can access and get into that discussion, that social forum. Yeah, maybe reviews as well. We can be posting reviews, or people can be reviewing what we're doing. Yeah, and also others can be used to distribute our content. So we're sharing the media space with someone else. So there's quite a lot going on, really. I'm going to ask a question later on as to how, where you tend to focus most stuff. I think I know in Bosnia where most of the action is happening because of circumstances with you. In fact, okay, now I'm going to ask the question now. I'm going to ask the question now because I want to, and I'm going to use a tool which we're going to use in a minute. Yeah, there is an annotation tool. Yeah, within Zoom. Yeah, what I want you to do is I want you to take that annotation tool and mark on the screen the area where most of your effort tends to be placed. Okay, I think maybe Sanela, if you want to explain where the annotation tool is.
Ok, dobro jutro ovako i od mene. Znači,
Yes, good morning from me too.
se nalazi
So the annotation tool is on the top of your Zoom screen. you can see a green banner which says you're viewing Albany Associates screen. Next to it, there's a black ribbon. If you click on it, the third item from the top should read annotate. If you see it, click on it, you will get another ribbon. Click, choose your color, your sign.
Yeah.
I'll do it first to demonstrate. So these are my stars. Can you see them?
Very nice.
And you can use them as well.
Okay. So yeah, so just make a mark in the area where most of your effort is focused. Okay, so someone's going a bit mad now, and there's hearts all over the place. Just one each. Tell you what, I'm going to clear the screen, and you're
Trebali
going
ste
to do
vidjeti mene jutros kad
one
smo ovo
mark.
pumpali.
Oh, I'm going to clear the screen. Okay, hang on a minute, and have another go. Okay, hang on, and just one mark each. Yeah, have another go now. Daria, how many times have you done it there? Daria's really liking Daria is really liking owned media, likes the digital website. That's good. Okay. Yeah, okay, fine. The point is made, I think. Yeah, that there is this split that you're either really loving your earned media, yeah, which I think predominantly is dealing directly with journalists, or you're loving the website, the digital stuff, yeah. Diane's gone over to non-social forums. I quite like that, but predominantly it's down the middle, earned and owned. Yeah, no big shock. Yeah. However, the other two are definitely a little bit lonely. They're places where you can really get traction, especially when I think the shared media is very, very powerful, a very, very powerful area if you do it well. Yeah, getting into non-owned social forums especially, yeah, because often those social forums are involve people who are very, very interested in the area you want to be operating in, and that's on the subject matters you want to be operating in. Okay, and some of them will be very, very influential as well. Yeah, they're interested and influential. Remember power interest matrix? Yeah, they could be key players who are in those non-owned, as in you don't own them, social forums. So don't forget about those. Okay. Advertising, sponsored content. Yeah, if you've got money to do it, then that's great. It's not something I have really done before much myself, but don't forget it. You know, you might consider, actually, I do want to spend some money on paid advertising or actually putting in sponsored content. Don't forget it. Okay. And now I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to clear your wonderful artwork. Yeah, it is beautiful, but it's going to go. Okay, I'm afraid. There we go. What power I have. Okay. Okay, so we'll look at those four areas, but then let's have a look at the actual key aspects, is the way the UK is looked at, the key aspects of modern relations. That Daniela, still messing around, isn't she? That's Daniela just done that. I'm going to clear those again. Okay. No, it's not dealing with children. Stop it. Right. I'm going to clear those again. Okay, you will have another chance to do this. Okay. Clear the drawings. Yeah. You'll have another chance to do it in a minute. Okay. Right. 5 key aspects of modern media operations. Okay. So let's look. We've looked at that, and those 4 elements will come into the next sections. This is what the UK's really looked at before and said these are the main areas of media. Yeah. Proactive, reactive, relationship building, digital and content, and obviously insight and evaluation. Yeah. Okay. They're the key elements of what you would be doing on a day-to-day basis, short-term, long-term, medium-term. This is the stuff you'd be doing all the time. Okay. Okay, thank you for that message there. So let's have a look at these. Okay, so in terms of proactive media handling, yeah, this is the sort of stuff that you should, from a UK government perspective, media perspective, and from a government communication service perspective, this is the sort of stuff you should be doing. If you are going to be going out and making announcements to the world, explaining what you're doing, policy changes or initiatives or behavioral change, you know, COVID-19, what are you meant to do? Yeah, making announcements. These are the sort of things that you should be doing. Okay, these are in the communications handbook. Yeah, so on a daily basis, continuous, this is the sort of stuff you'd be doing. Because if you're not doing it, you're not actually announcing anything to the world. You're not communicating with the world. Okay, so placing stories, yeah, aligning work with strategy, strategic communications, policy, yeah, using tools like Oasis. Oh, Oasis again, yeah, to plan, property, and target work. Handling plans, media handling plans, yeah, they include press notices, potential risks, core scripts, Q&A, yeah, comment pieces, op-eds, yeah, engaging with broadcast planners, you know, working regularly with broadcasters, speaking regularly to key correspondents and journalists on a regular basis, building trust and relationships with journalists, yeah, working with stakeholders, yeah, considering the use of trailing and embargoes, yeah, standard media operations procedures. This is all stuff that in a proactive sense you should be doing. Okay, now what I want you to do is use the annotation tool again, and I want you to select specific. I'm going to be a little bit more strict now. What I want you to do is to find, I think if you go to stamp, yeah, there's a tick, yeah. And what I want you to do is I want you to tick in the boxes. You've got three, you can have 3 shots, yeah. I want you to tick in the boxes which bits of this you tend to do most often, okay? So you've got 3 shots. You can pick 3 different boxes, okay? So each of you annotate. If you can use the green, yeah, use the green tick, okay? And let's just see what we come up with. Okay, interesting. Okay. So we're getting a picture now of where you tend to be putting most of your effort in proactive media. Okay, this is what you do as part of your management on a regular basis. Okay, so if we look at that now, you can probably stop now. We're getting the picture has now become clear. Okay, so if we look at that, I think there are some gaps. I think there are some gaps, aren't there? Yeah. Certainly in terms of, well, using tools like Oasis. Now, Oasis is a campaigning tool, yeah? But you could consider, you know, if you do have a story and you need it to get traction in the media, yeah, you could consider actually using the Oasis model to actually plan almost like a mini campaign a mini campaign aimed specifically at media. Yeah. It's called, sometimes you could say that this could be a agenda setting, priming and framing. Yeah. So almost setting up a teaser for a story, then building it up, giving more information to the media, and then ending it with a major announcement. Yeah. So trailing, actually. Yeah. So I'm getting a sense that even in your proactive, it's pretty discreet work you're doing, placing stories in a strategic way, yeah, aligned with institutional objectives. Yeah, that's great. But I'm sensing here that these are discrete placements that are being done, and maybe less in a long-term strategic planned way. I'm also looking and seeing that use of comment pieces, op-eds, blogs, shareable media, that hasn't been ticked off. Maybe that's because you consider that to be digital and not media. And media, yeah, it's owned, it's earned. Yeah. Remember what we talked about here? I'll just click back. Owned, earned, paid, and shared. Yeah. So are your is your output, such as blog, content pieces, comment pieces, etc., is that not linked to your communications with the standard journalistic media and placing stories in your traditional legacy media? Should it be linked in? I'd say yes. I'd also look, what else is it? Yeah, yeah. Not many ticks for high quality handling plans that include press notices, potential risk, course scripts, briefing, and Q&A. Okay, right. So once again, I'm getting the sense that stories are being placed, but the backup stuff of, say, comment pieces, say blogs, op-eds, say course scripts, briefings, Q&A sessions with journalists around more complex issues, they're not as high at the daily working agenda as actually just placing stories and engaging early with broadcasters as well. So I'm sensing there's a lack of depth possibly in what you're trying to do. Yeah, that you're putting stuff out there, you're engaging with journalists, you're placing stories, but then if I wanted to go further, yeah, there's a slight lack of depth. Now I could go to many press offices around the world and they'd go, yeah, that's right, because we don't have time or we don't have the resources. Yeah. But what I just said, am I getting it right? I'm getting people nodding their heads. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so there's a gap there. Time and resources, that might be the problem. But at least we're starting to see that that's a gap, a lack of depth. How might we tackle that if we needed to? In certain stories which are of extremely high value for the government, for the institution, how do we perhaps give more depth in certain areas? And if it's a time and a resource issue, then it's thinking, okay, where do I get the time from and do I reallocate resources? Yeah, because let's face it, you know, just because you're lacking depth doesn't mean to say the minister is going to go, oh, I tell you what, I'll give you some more people. That's probably not going to happen in the short term. In the short term. So it is about looking at your timing and your resources and reallocating them internally to give certain amount of depth to certain stories. yeah, and not just treating them as discrete stories that go into the media, they're picked up, and that's job done. I think often the problem is that that's what ministers want. Ministers aren't really interested in depth. They just want to see a story in the media, often with their face if it's good stuff, and often not with their face if it's bad stuff. Yeah, but lacking depth. And that is often down to a management issue. Yeah. So there we go. We've just identified a gap. Yeah. That's a management function, identifying where your gaps and trying to deal with them, or reallocating resources, saying actually less effort on that, more effort on this over the next month or so, because that's where we need depth now. Okay. Are there any questions or points on that? Ivana, you raised your hand. Please.
Well, I've been thinking about the previous session, and it seems to me that this is a natural continuation of the absence of proper understanding of public relations and media handling, how it should be done comprehensively when you're using all the tools and techniques available. And Adis just told me that they can't hear me well, but I'm speaking right into the microphone. So I'm going to step closer to the microphone. Does it help? Can you hear me now? Is it any better? Okay. So also the absence or lack of compliance or inadequate communication or organization culture, internal communication and internal communication culture that is then reflected here. So this is not limited, I'd say, to only media handling and the activities that we undertake to ensure proper media handling, but I'd say it has to do with the entire system of the business, your understanding of public relations of your organization. You have to start from the beginning, I'd say, from internal communication and the culture all the way to the management within the organization. So when you first get all these things right, then this is much easier. You can ensure proactive media handling, because we are all aware that we lack resources always, and many of the institutions do not have the money, and not so much money is being allocated for their media handling. So I'm sure that operationally speaking, we could maybe focus more on this and try to integrate some of these steps in our media handling. But in our context, we really need a deep approach and comprehensive approach to, and that all organizations should work on media handling following these steps.
Thank you, Ivana. Yeah, yes, you raise a good point that this is actually quite deep into the system that's operating. And you raise a very good point about sometimes yes, time and resources are always going to be something that we all could do with more of. But you're right. Sometimes it is the internal management culture which can be the problem. You've got enough time, you've got enough resources, but you haven't got the management culture, the leadership culture, which will give you that information, that freedom of maneuver, yeah, to actually operate without having to get clearance by this and this and this, and slowing down the system So often it's not necessarily just about time and resources. It's about internal communications. It's about approval processes. Yeah, it's about authority and delegation. It's about being given the good strategic guidance from leadership, which allows that freedom of maneuver and action. So those things are quite deep structural, cultural management issues. And you know, really they're taken away from time and resources. Yeah. But you know, we are where we are. Yeah. We can't make huge changes. But this is why towards the end of this session, especially in session 4, I will have asked you for those to identify those marginal gains that can be done, which can make shifts within the system. Yeah. To subtly change that management structure. Not necessarily management culture, because culture is quite difficult to change, but structures which can be moved within a pre-existing cultural management culture. Yeah. So you make a very good point that, yeah, this is not just about time and resources. Yeah. Ivana, you got your hand up again.
Ja se izvinjavam, evo ušli smo opet, ulazim u raspravu neku, ako previše filozofiram, slobodno recite, ali sve su to neke stvari o kojima razmišljam.
I'd like to join in the jam, and I was trying to say that we can do this, that we can ensure that this is done gradually, slowly. I am not a PR by profession. I hope I will be soon in terms of my formal education and informal education. I'm working towards that. But what I was trying to say is that we must work on all these levels to ensure these marginal gains to the best of our abilities. And internal communication, some authors believe that internal communication and the employees are the most important public or audience of each organization. So from our perspective, we can produce great materials for the media, but if our 160 employees who have daily contacts with citizens, with businesses, with people in general, in all spheres of life, if they are not able to get a proper understanding of the organization and the messages, and are unsuccessful in their contact with all these stakeholders, then everything is futile. The previous session was really excellent. It made us think, all of us, I mean, personally and professionally and organization-wise, to really think about how we can find time, energy, and resources to improve, and especially to cover these gaps if we want to raise our media handling to a higher level.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it is going to be little steps. And you do hit the nail on the head in a way that you know, your staff, the internal engagement, the internal leadership and management is actually probably the most important changes that can be made in terms of the way you will ultimately conduct your communications and media engagement. Yeah, well, you can be taught how to produce much better, better press releases. You can be taught to, for better content production. You can, but ultimately, that will make it a minor difference. Yeah, really, the deeper down management bloodstream, which involves ultimately people, is where you will get major changes. Trouble is, that's not sexy. That's not sexy. Especially ministers they're not interested in that. They want to see flashy stuff. They want to see good interviews. They want to see them doing this. They want to see great, great images of their work that they've done. It's not sexy, but it's critical, and it's what you as communicators have to take on. And even though actually the management might go, just give me some nice stuff. Give me some nice media coverage. That's all I'm interested in. Yeah. Daria, you've got your hand up as well.
Kada je pričala Ivana,
When Ivana was talking about internal public, I mean, the employees are always PR ambassadors. They are very important when the entire, when the image and the reputation of organization is concerned. While with respect to media handling, I agree that many organizations and institutions need resources and money to implement many activities. PRs, offices for PRs don't have the budget often, and you said we often have to do and work with what we have, and we are trying to make do with what we have and to make our media handling proactive. Well, to be more specific, in our institution, we really are trying to do the best we can to organize at least one briefing with the media representatives every year. We often use press conferences as a term for all kinds of press events. We have to be also careful to use it to refer to everyone, because we are trying to win over the media in terms of making sure to, for example, send them an email or a card for their birthday or for some important events. It's a little thing that can really be good. It makes them focus more on our work, on what our institution is doing, and maybe that can be considered as proactive, because our public, our most important audience are the patients, are the beneficiaries of the public insurance fund. And then we want to really have the media and the journalists covering our work. We give them enough opportunity to discuss with us our cooperation and our relationship in the past and today, and where we want to go in the future. We are always trying to make sure that they have enough opportunities for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the things about, yeah. What's that?
Why are you laughing?
Well, to think about you make a point about, a birthday card. Oh, well, what's that matter? It's those little touch points which matter with your media. And yeah, I'd say that is proactive media handling. If you are sending a birthday card to some pretty key members of your publics, and if it's going to be traditional media, it'll be key journalists, then yeah, and not just sending a birthday card because it's on the list, but having developed a genuine relationship with journalists and sending a genuine birthday card for a genuine reason. But yeah, that's part of developing that relationship, which is very important. I used to train, I've trained thousands and thousands of young press officers. And I said to them, actually, most of your work, if you're doing your job properly, most of your work will not be preparing, ministers for briefing. It will not be media monitoring. It will not be writing press releases. It will be sitting, drinking coffee and tea with journalists. That's relationship building, because it will pay off. And that's proactive. It's not sexy. Ministers going, oh, why is my press officer out again speaking to journalists? Well, that's part of relationship building. Yeah, we're going to talk more about internal communications in the next session, but we're all fully understanding here that part of communication, most of communication management, is ultimately not about doing the hard information release to certain publics. It is about building up relationships It's about planning things out, being more strategic. Yeah. It's working with stakeholders, shared media. Yeah. That's the thing. And really, really developing with internally the mentality that communications is important and everybody has a part to play. Yeah. But most people go, oh yeah, media stuff. It's media. It's about journalists. It's about content. It's about this. That's the end game. There's so much more that happens before that, as you all know. Yeah. So let's press on. And in terms of proactive media as well, I'm just going to clear the all those nice, lovely drawings. You have your normal consumer media as well. People often forget that. You know, if you're, I mean, how many times would you put a piece of some content into an industry magazine or a Cosmopolitan? There's a magazine, yeah. That's still going, isn't it? That's a female magazine, Cosmopolitan, I believe, or there will be journals in which you might want to get your story into, which are not necessarily mainstream hard news. They are consumer media. It's media that's consumed directly by your audience, which is not necessarily news based. Yeah. So there's something you could be proactively planning to get stuff into. Bojana, you've got your hand up.
Dobar dan. Da li se čujemo? Ja imam neki
Can you
problem.
hear me? I have a problem with my microphone, but I hope you can hear me. Before this COVID crisis, I had organized press conferences every month, and it was a regular activity for us because the journalists during these 15 to 20 days would send all kinds of questions to me because we cover the three ministries. They send me these questions and I prepare for the press. It's not a theme press conference, but it is a press conference open for all issues, and it's not time restricted. And the first few were long and were rather complex, but when we got a handle of it and we developed this habit, and they knew that each month they will be able to have information and send their questions, there was a reduction in the number of journalists and the NGOs and and if there were some very expert issues or similar, we would make sure that we have people from that field of work to answer the question. It was not just Q&A, but we would be all there. Yes, we wait for the questions. We get the questions, we prepare the answers, we prepare for the answers. We ensure that we have people who can provide the answers. It's like a conversation. It's not like a standard press conference, and it proved to be very a good approach. We would then be able to produce analysis, and we had very positive feedback, and we were not constantly overburdened with answering questions. We would organize this in a very comfortable setting, somewhat informal. We would serve coffee, and it was very good. But we were not able to continue with this proactive media handling during this pandemic time, and it was my idea. I proposed it, and people were skeptical in the beginning, but then as we went along, it really yielded results, because with these showing that we care, and with these packages for the journalists, we got them on our side, and we would usually have questions in the past regarding export of milk, for example, meat products, and they wanted to know what the reports and the statistics are. They would get that from us. They knew that they would get it from us. I'm just saying this as an example. I'm trying to find ways to continue with this using Zoom or some other platforms. We are now discussing this with our management, and we have to have the clearance. I can't join in the discussion as much as I would like to, because there are quite a few of us in the office. I have my colleagues here with me, interpreters and proofreaders, and it's
No,
me talking all the time would
no,
really
that's fine. No,
interfere with their work.
well, yeah, Bojana, thank you. Yeah, that's precisely the sort of stuff that should be being done regularly. What you've just explained to me is what I'd call a background briefing. Regular background briefings where they are informal, often can be off the record, even though off the record is a very dangerous thing, as we've talked about before. But having those background briefings, it's part of relationship building. It's part of building up the knowledge of the journalists who are working on your issues, such they have a much better idea of why you're trying to do certain things, how you're trying to do them, and it's just a much more open exchange of information. Absolutely brilliant. You should be holding them on a regular basis. Yeah, and likewise, okay, COVID-19, Zoom, what we're using now. Yeah, I mean, Zoom. You can have hundreds on Zoom if you wanted to. It gets a little bit busy, but continuing that informal discussion, and not discussion, it's not even discussion, but informal engagement with the media and also with other stakeholders, massively important. You may have these all the time, and there's no tangible media output, week on, month on from these media briefings. But when there is a reason you need to engage and you need to get a story out, and you are having a proper press conference and you're releasing proper press releases and digital content, then the quality for both the journalist and yourself of the media engagement at that point, when it really matters, is so much more than operating this vacuum where you wouldn't have had this informal engagement beforehand. Important stuff. I mean, how many of you here have conducted background briefings on Zoom or some other video teleconferencing system in the last year? A background briefing, not a press conference, background briefing. How many of you done? Just hands up, digitally hands up, if you've done background briefings on a video teleconferencing system. Not getting many hands up. Yeah, there you go. That's a little. I say it's not a little thing, because they take organization. They take a degree of trust from leadership. Yeah, to allow you to engage with, your public's media or otherwise, but easily done. And this is the sort of stuff which could possibly be done in the future when the pandemic is over. It's a lot easier to say, once a week or once every 2 weeks for an hour, I'm inviting key journalists for a background briefing on Zoom or some other system. It's a lot easier for journalists to do that, to think, actually, I've got to go from my office to another venue. Takes up time. Often it's not worth it. Make it easy for them. So I think the video teleconferencing background briefing system, this could survive post-COVID, and can be, when it's managed well, can be really, really useful. Yeah, when it comes to the stuff you really want to get through to the media, because you've already got that relationship. They understand the issues. So yeah, Bojana, thank you for raising that. Okay, I'm gonna head on. All this stuff which we're going through here, that this is in your communications handbook. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of chat coming up. Are there any questions that we're addressing? all seems to be.
Yeah, I will speak on Bosnian because I am recording Bosnian channel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Znači, većina reakcija je u stvari na
the majority of chat activity is reaction to Bojana's input. The questions were who were the speakers at the press? Are you waiting to get all the questions? Slavica said it's a great thing that the minister had the time and was willing to do this on a monthly basis. Daria says it's not a bad idea, but are the journalists upset when you uncover their topics in front of other journalists? In a way, you're killing their exclusive. And Daria says it's not bad if the journalists want to wait for the press and if they don't mind that this topic be discussed with other media. Mimi says, if you're going to a press of this kind as a journalist, you will not be raising questions that you want to have as an exclusive. Then someone said that the government of the federation used to have this, that the press conferences of the crisis staff during the pandemic were also online. Mimi asked Dunja whether this was done in the government of the federation. The answer was this was before my time there. Bojana says there are questions that are asked by different media, and it's very difficult and time-consuming to cover them all. And that is how this briefing was, how we overcame this issue. Slavica then asked about this practice of the government of the federation. It was called a current hour. And someone said that
radili su streamline putem YouTube kanala.
They also did a streamline through YouTube channel and asked the journalists to send their questions there, but we didn't get any questions. However, they would regularly get in touch in case of any crisis or problem. Bojana says that the journalists were very grateful and appreciative of this kind of briefing. And the current hour that was mentioned as the practice of the government of the federation was also live. Bojana says they would not wait for the press conference to answer only specific questions by a particular medium, but the issues of export is a common issue. Everyone wants to cover that, and that was what was covered in the briefing. So yes, the chat discussion was very active during the presentation. Unmute, Jem.
There you go. Sorry, I was just talking to myself there. That was very interesting. I said some amazing things and you missed it. Thank you for that, Yasenka, and thank you for Bojana for bringing that up. I mean, that's a perfect example of the stuff that should be done on a proactively on a regular basis. And I know it's difficult, and I know it takes time. It takes a lot of time to seek out questions, to organize something, especially if you're doing a physical event, to get the questions, to use a minister's time, not necessarily a minister. Sometimes it can be, a subject matter expert. Sometimes it can be the spokesperson. If you've got an official spokesperson, say, no, it's an hour with the spokesperson, which is addressing questions. I think you have to educate the journalists in what these things are, if you're having background briefings like this, that it's not a press conference for you to come in and sneak in and get that little tiny nugget for your story. Yeah, this is about building understanding and knowledge of journalists and other publics, such that when they really want to write their story, when there is a real issue to write about, they're in a much better position to ask and interrogate the right things. Yeah. So it's not an opportunity for a journalist to come in and go, I'm going to get that sneaky bit of information and trip the government up on this. This is not the format for that at all. But if you do manage it right and educate journalists and other publics that this is an opportunity for them, and you do put the work and the effort into it, it can, over the long term, pay quite good dividends. Yeah. The problem is that sometimes ministers go, well, what's the point? What's the point of that? Because ministers tend to work on a short, well, no, the cleverer ones, the ones who've got more strategic thinking, know that this is a long game. But often ministers who are, very busy bouncing around, they're thinking very short term. And they think, why are we having these hour-long briefings every other 2 weeks? What benefit is it to me? And the problem is often the benefit is not immediate. So you have to do a degree of education of ministers to say, look, this isn't going to happen immediately, but in 6 months' time, when you really have a big story, in your face, minister, this will help us and will help you. So there's a degree of education there as well. Yeah, but proactive. A lot of work and effort goes into it, and it's only over the long term you can see a big benefit. As Ivana said, this stuff is not going to change overnight. Yeah, we're going to change these ideas, these management structures and concepts. They take time, and the benefit often takes time to come back. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Reactive media handling. Yeah, you do a lot of that, I imagine. Yeah, reactive media handling. Yeah, doing your media monitoring. We're going to talk a bit more about monitoring, but call handling and rebuttal. Yeah, I imagine a lot of you spend a lot of time dealing with the media because they've got some sort of, they've either misconstrued information or they've got a story and it's not quite right, but they're trying to make their story and they're going to throw it at you, and you've got to rebut the information, say, no, that's incorrect, that's wrong. Yeah, minister, can you go out? The media are talking about this, and we need to change the narrative. Yeah, it's verging on this. Yeah, I heard many people saying we're always in crisis. If we're working in a media and a comms office, we're always responding to stuff. We're always in crisis. Well, you're not really in crisis. It just sometimes feels like that. Yeah, genuine crisis is very, very different. But that spectrum of your standard reactive media through to your crisis, it's a grey area. But I would say, looking at these, you probably do a lot of it. From what I've heard of working with people like you in Bosnia, you do a lot of this. Yeah. I suppose that the question would be, and I want you to discuss this, is really, if you had to say a balance in terms of your media, yeah, and I'm talking by and large traditional media, dealing with the media, what percentages of your effort, the work that you do, what percentage is proactive? Yeah, as in you are in charge, you are planned, this is planned engagement, as opposed to reactive. What percentage is that? Yeah, and why? Why is that? Who's driving that percentage? Okay. So I want you, I'm gonna put you into breakout rooms. I'm gonna get, once again, this time I'm gonna randomize the breakout rooms, so you'll end up with whoever. Yeah. Quick 5-minute discussion on that, but when I come back, I want you to just come up with what is the percentage? Okay, is everybody happy with that? And then we'll head towards a quick coffee break. Okay, right.
Jem, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Jem?
Yeah.
I will continue in Bosnian. Mislim da je super
I think it's great to mention before the discussion something that Bojana wrote on the chat. And I think it can be used as the basis for further discussion. The chat discussion says that we are all communicators and we like to talk. And that is why we are, in inverted commas, afraid of Zoom press conferences, where it's very difficult to direct the course of the discussion and how to moderate this press conference and how to direct it. Ivana says that it takes a lot of time and training and good moderating skills, and questions have to be prepared. So we are already talking about proactive versus reactive and borderline crisis communication. One suggestion says that they prepare their principles with short and effective sentences that can be used for predicted questions, and that Zoom conferences would be a brave and good direction to take, but that it is risky depending on the institution and the work of that institution, the areas of work. So Daria, Dragana, and Ivana participated in this discussion, and Dragana said it's also a good idea if the journalists are favorable and willing to have a constructive discussion, which they are usually not. They are looking for delicate questions. And Christina says it depends a lot on the type of the institution and the head of that institution.
Yeah, yes. You make a good point. Yeah, using this technology, it's all fairly new to us, even if we've been using Skype for years. And yeah, actually, it does demand a degree of understanding how to moderate a Zoom session as opposed to running a press conference. So yes, you do have to take that into account. I think what I'm getting the sense of, people are still thinking of these background briefings via Zoom or in other contexts are press conferences. They're not. Yeah, background briefings and press conferences are I think different. Yeah, it needs a degree of education of the journalists. Yeah, as I say, background briefings can be off the record. I have carried out background briefings off the record, knowing I'm taking a risk. Yeah, but that's the extreme differences between a press conference. That's always on the record. A background briefing can be totally off the record. It's for the benefit of the journalist, but background briefing for information, you do not disclose me as a source for any of this information. It's just purely for you to understand the situation. Yeah. And to that end, sometimes, in fact, I think more often than not, it does not need to be the principals that are briefing the journalists. If you have some really good subject matter experts, yeah, who are articulate, yeah, who fully understand what they're meant to be doing in a background briefing, yeah, who can present very well, yeah, some very, quite difficult to understand data, if they can present it very well, then that's a value. And you could run a whole series of background briefings and your minister, your deputy minister, doesn't go near them. But you have really good subject matter experts who have been primed and prepared to talk to journalists on certain subjects. The degree of media training might be involved, even then they're not there for interview. Then that can provide huge amounts of value, both for the organization and the journalists. And it's not going, the minister isn't even involved. The principals aren't involved. But once again, that requires a lot of time and effort to find the right people, to prepare them, for them to do preparation, to do background briefings, but it's not a press conference. It's not a press conference. Yeah. So we have to be very subtle about how journalists come to this and how we come to this. This is not a press conference. We need to understand that, and journalists need to understand that. Yeah. They can ask, you could be asking journalists, look, what do you want to know about it? Where are the issues where you're unsure? We'll get a subject matter expert to explain this. But hard news questions, no, really, we're not going to, that's not what these things are about. Background briefing. Useful, but demanding. Okay. So let's go back to our question here. Okay. 5-minute discussion in random breakout rooms. Proactive, reactive. What's the percentage break and why? Why is that percentage break as it is? Okay. Let's say, right. So 5 minutes and I'll bring you back. Okay. Breakout rooms. I'm going to assign completely randomly 3. No, in fact, I'm going to go down to 2 breakout rooms, random assignment. Okay. So you don't even know who you're going to be in the room with yet. Okay. So here we go. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay. We're back.
Slavice, možete li na chat dovršiti, molim vas?
Okay. Messia, Boyana, are you still there?
Yes, we are here.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to check that was working. Excellent. Okay, right. Simple question then to the two groups. What percentage proactive to reactive, and why is that so? Okay, so who wants to go? Who wants to represent their room and make a statement on that and answer that question? It was in room 1.
Možda Aca, ti možeš u ime grupe 1.
So perhaps you could present on behalf of room number 1. I'm having some connection issues, so I will be brief. So we agreed that the ratio is around 80 versus 20%, 80% reactive. We are all talking about the need for greater proactivity. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Yes, we can.
Yeah.
So everyone agrees that we should be more proactive, but when it comes to the real life practice, then we are not as proactive as we are all talking about. From time to time, we ask from media outlets the information about their interests and how we could make their work easier. And then based on their feedback, we are trying to do something. Sometimes you cannot meet all requests, but I think it's a good way to keep in touch with people and to create the impression that we do care about them. So be it technical matters such as the space, the lighting and stuff like that, all the way to topical issues. But we are still predominantly reactive.
Okay. Thank you, Asa. You reckon 80-20, 80% proactive, 20% reactive. Okay. Thank you. Okay. What about the other room? That was room 2. So someone from room 2, if you want to come back. Someone's saying maximum. Ivana's saying 30-70 actually in chat. Is that 30 proactive, 70 reactive? Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so almost a reversal. Yeah. So was that room 2's perception? Yeah, generally 30-70. Okay, that's interesting. So there was complete random selection in the breakout rooms, and we've got one room that says 80% proactive, 20% reactive, and the other room is saying about 30% proactive and 70% reactive. That's interesting. Oh, no, we get no.
Ne.
Correct me then,
Prva
correct
grupa
me.
je rekla 80 reaktivno.
The first group said 80% reactive and 20% proactive.
Sorry, yes.
I am following what are you saying.
So 80%, say that again, 80%, it was 80%.
Reactive.
80% reaktivno, 20%.
80% reactive,
Yeah.
20% proactive.
Okay. And the other room is saying 70%.
Druga grupa je rekla maksimalno, možda.
So the other room says 70% reactive, 30% proactive
that
as
makes
a
more sense.
maximum. As a maximum.
That makes more sense. That makes more sense. Yeah, and that's what I imagine your response would be.
Otherwise would be.
Yeah, otherwise a bit weird. Cool. Okay, good. Okay, well that sounds not unreasonable. I think lots of organizations operate like that.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Zorica kaže da se ne slaže sa.
Zorica says that she disagrees with the ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And she thinks that the situation is not as bad as reported.
Okay. Would Zorica think it would go the other way, or is it still going to be mostly reactive? Zorica, what do you think of that?
Zorica kaže da misli da treba uzeti u obzir proaktivnu transparentnost.
Zorica says that she believes we should consider proactive transparency that the institutions nurture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should be much more proactive. I think that's where.
Jer objave nisu samo ono što rade rukovodioci.
Because, as Zorica continues, announcements are not only what the managers or seniors in the institution do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's not only what they do. You're absolutely right. And I think open transparency, proactive transparency is where we want to head to. I think Adzo was saying that there's an appreciation that, we need to be going more and more proactive, more and more proactive.
Dragana dodaje da postoji istraživanje.
Dragana says that there was a research by the NGOs in BIH which says that Bosnia and Herzegovina has the worst score in terms of proactive publication of information.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right.
And then Zorica added that there are many materials that are regularly published, and it would be a shame if we minimized the value of our work now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh,
Midhat asked, I don't know why you believe that reactive approach is bad if it yields results.
No. Yes, if it yields results. But often you're reacting to someone else's agenda. So you'd have less control. So it's less likely that you are going to have positive results for you because you're reacting to someone else's agenda. If you do it well, then yes, you can, make reactive work for you. And I'm not saying you just abandon reactive media. No, that's part of the game. Media, the media as the fourth estate are to hold you, the government, to account. So you're going to have to react to that. Absolutely. I haven't got a problem with that at all. But the balance of 80-20 or 70-30 reactive to proactive is quite high. My argument would be the more proactive you are, yeah, and this takes time for it to happen. The more proactive you are, then the less likely you are to be required to be reactive, because you're servicing the needs of the media anyway. Yeah, you will still need to be reactive, but you are starting to not only service the needs of the media before they even know those needs. You're answering their questions before they've had a chance to even ask them. Think about it like that. Yeah. The more you can do that, then the less reactive you will need to be, because they're serviced. The journalists are serviced with information. Yeah. And two, it is part of your strategic objective, policy alignment. Yes, you have more control. Yeah. Yasenka, the chat is going mad, which is great.
Yes, da. Darija kaže da se slaže sa Zoricom.
Yes, Daria says she agrees with Zorica when it comes to percentages and the share, when she talks about her institution only. Daniela says that in terms of proactive transparency and publication of information, non-governmental organizations are not relevant. Adisa adds that activities of the managers are not mainly not published at all. What we publish are activities of the administration in service of the public. And Mimi complimented Mido and said, yes, Mido, if reactivity yields results, then why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Slavica says, when it comes to proactive publication, I wouldn't say that we are the worst. Zorica says, I don't think that reactive approach is a satisfactory result. That means that we are defending ourselves already.
Yeah.
Mido disagrees. Slavica says that the law on freedom of access to information still does not provide for proactivity, but it certainly will in one of its future incarnations.
Okay, that's interesting. We're talking about freedom of information, FOIA. Yeah, that's a whole new kettle of fish. But I don't want to go down the route of FOIA, but if the more open you are, the more proactive you are, then the less, I think it's been proved by research, then the less you are going to be hit by FOIA. Yeah, because the more open you are with the information. Yeah, I'm not just talking about in terms of media, but in terms of what your online capabilities, your online portals providing information, then the less likely you're going to be hit by FOIA because the information's already there. Yeah. So before we go on, I know that Ivana has been very, very patient, and she's sitting there with her hand up. So Ivana, go on.
Da, imamo još 19 poruka na chatu, da znate.
Lakše mi je reći, mislim da se u stvari ovdje radi...
I think that we have different interpretation of proactive. If you are publishing information, releases, reports, and content, and that deals with proactive transparency. But in our discussion, we were focusing on the things that you need to do, the list of 11 or 12 activities in order to be proactive. So we were discussing our proactivity in that context, and we concluded that we are more proactive, that we are less proactive, and we are not avoiding media or anything of that kind. We were not having a discussion in that context, but more within the context of the list that of activities that make a proactive approach. That's why we have these different opinions. We received the questionnaire, and I was very surprised in how we were approached. When you open our webpage, you have all the necessary information. So if you're preparing an analysis, you have everything there. And it was obvious that no one really accessed our webpage. They didn't prepare and have some basic information, which at the very beginning created an impression with me about their credibility and the analysis that they are preparing.
Okay, point well made about the fact that when we were looking at proactive media, we were generally looking at proactive media with the media. Yeah, that yes, you can have websites that are putting out information, and the more open and transparent you are, then that is a version of being proactive. But I suppose the question we could reformulate the question and saying, okay, of all the stories in the traditional media about your organization, what it's doing, what percentage are initiated and generated by the media compared to those which are initiated and generated by you? Yeah. And I think the answer probably would still be 80% of the stories are generated by the media. Yeah. And 20% or 30% or whatever are generated actually by us speaking to the media and saying, this is actually something you want to focus on. This is the information we can give you. We can give you access to this, and we initiate and generate the story. Yeah. So I think in pure proactive media, as in traditional media, I think those figures still do work. Yeah. And you come to the UK, and yeah, many organizations still would say, yeah, we're still like that, and we'd still like to move a little bit more towards putting our own stories in. I think often the problem is that I've come across is this is something which is often done in crisis comms, is a degree of triage. Yeah. Just because the media hit you with requests for X, Y, and Z and information on A, B, and C, there's not, you don't need to respond to every single media request. And if it's getting very, very busy and you want to move more to proactive, then you do a degree of triage, which is actually basically prioritizing what who you should be engaging with when they are asking you questions. Yeah. Or pooling. Yeah. Pooling is a concept where, media will come and say, we've only got, we need to get some, say, visuals for a story. And you say, well, we can't have all of you here with your cameras, just choose one and pool. You can do the same in terms of pooling. When you get questions coming in about something, yeah, you take all the questions and you respond in one to all the media, not as individuals. Yeah. So there are ways in which you can manage the information flow in a reactive context, which can reduce your work commitment. That 80% of our time is dealt with just dealing with bloody questions all the time. Yeah. You can actually be more cleverer in the way you respond by triaging and pooling your response back into the media space. Yeah. Which then over time, the more you do that, yeah, the more you can then think, okay, maybe we can spare up a bit more space to be more proactive in our stories in 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months time. So once again, this shift takes time. Yeah. Now I see there's a lot of chat going on this. This has generated a lot of chat, hasn't it? Yeah. I'm going to call a halt to it, but Yasenka, can you just give me a quick rundown on this and then we'll move on?
43 poruke, 43 new messages. I didn't read it.
43 new messages. Like, okay, well, tell you what, no, fine. You're having the discussion. Well, the point being, okay, let's not look at the chat. The point being, you are having the discussions. You're having the discussions amongst yourselves as to how to resolve some of these problems. As I said on Monday, this is very specific to you. Some of the management constraints and the context that you are working in are very, very specific to you. And only you probably, amongst yourselves from different organizations, different entities, can really maybe come up with some of the answers to deal with this, to shift that 80-20. Because you've all said, actually, we should be shifting it. Some have said it's not quite that bad. We should be shifting it. The discussions you're having now, these could carry on. They could carry on MIMC. Wow, MIMC, Gem, really? Yeah, you could. Yeah, not on the LMS. You could carry on this discussion on MIMC. Yeah. So we'll draw it to a stop there, and we will move on. Okay.
Jem.
Yeah.
A few requests asking for a coffee break or smoke break.
Yeah, that is what's coming up now because, ta-da, on the screen, coffee break. Yeah, let's take 10 minutes. Yeah, so 10 minutes. So that's back at midday your time. I think that's right, isn't it? You're 1 hour ahead. Back at midday your time, and then we'll continue through media and onto campaigns. Okay, 10 minutes. Excellent. Okay, let's carry on then. Okay, but this is good. There's some good discussion going on, and that's what this is really about. Okay, where are we now? Let me just rearrange all this. We were there talking about discussion, the discussion 80-20 we went to in the end. Of course, and we kind of discussed this, the other parts of media relations, modern media operations, is the relationship building. We've kind of been talking about this, yeah? Working relationships with policy and service delivery teams to understand their priorities. That's internal policy alignment, isn't it? Understanding other parts of your organization, especially if you're working for a big government department. Yeah. Getting involved in policy and service development. Once again, policy alignment. Yeah. So policy shaping and collaboration, a big part of relationship management, which is part of what you do as a comms officer. Notice the relationship management here, relationship management 1, this is pretty much internal. Yeah. Ivana was talking about this before. A massive amount of internal work needs to be done. Internal communication, coordination, understanding. Yeah, when policy people who are writing policy, they come and seek out the communications team and say, well, actually, we're thinking of developing this policy. We'd like your input into this as communicators. Yeah, as opposed to writing a policy, which a communications officer goes, great policy, I'm never going to sell it to the public. So you've just wasted all that time with a really wonderful policy, but because I'm comms, and I listen and have an idea of what's going on and how the media will deal with this and how publics will deal with it, I can tell you that that great policy you've just spent 6 months doing is not going to work, won't fly. You'll never sell it. Oh, I wish we had the communications people in at the start of this policy discussion. That's what we want to get to, where policy people will come and see you. Yeah. So that's all part of this relationship building, policy shaping and collaboration. A big, big part of, the work as comms officer. And going nowhere near the external audience. No journalists involved in this. Yeah, no cameras involved in this. No digital and social media involved in this. This is just good old fashioned dealing with people internally and managing yourselves. Yeah. Yeah, ministerial and advisor engagement, same principles here. Yeah. The minister needs to be engaged with you. Now, I know there's often a problem here, and it's the same where you are, and it has been the same here as well, is you have the comms office, yeah, communications office, public relations department, press office, whatever you want to call them, and then you have special advisors. You know, your special media advisor, oh yeah, which is often nothing to do with the communications department. So someone is brought in, probably a political operator, to advise the minister on communications. That can cause a bit of friction, a few problems. It's happened here. We've now, over years, had to be a lot stricter in defining where that special advisor, that ministerial advisor, where their role ends in terms of communication, and where the comms office, the press office's relationship begins. Yeah. I think a real good solid discussion between the communications department, the press office, and any major ministerial advisor, special advisor, is pretty crucial early on. Yeah. Otherwise, that can fall down very, very quickly. That you're trying to do communications for the ministry, and you've got a special advisor who's advising the minister, and they don't even meet up. That becomes a big problem. Yeah. So breaking down those barriers, defining where the terms of reference of each are, is quite important. We have suffered very badly over the last few years. We're getting a little bit better, but we have had over the last year special advisors in the news because they're of a certain power that they hold over certain people, not least the Prime Minister. So we do recognise that this is an issue, but does need to be addressed. It's part of management. It's part of communications management. Yeah. Then of course there's the digital and content creation. Yeah, we've talked about the old-fashioned dealing with the traditional legacy media with your journalists. Yeah. Now we're talking about all this work that needs to be done, because digital is a media and needs to be considered not separate. Not separate. Okay. So all of a sudden you get quite busy as communications and press officers. You know, let's be honest. Press officers. What a quaint way of looking at people who work in communications. Press officers. When was the last time a press, a real press, actually operated anywhere in Europe? The presses don't run anymore. It's all digital anyway, isn't it? So that quaint thing. So press officers, no. Communications officers deal with digital. Yeah. So it's even thinking about that, the mental impression it gives that, oh, I'm a press officer. Oh, that means you deal with the press. Well, no, actually, I'm a communications officer, but I'm called a press officer. It's confusing, isn't it? Yeah. Setting yourself up, you know, you're identifying yourself with a certain way of thinking, which isn't right. Yeah. Digital and content, big part of what you will do as communications. Let's call it that. Yeah. So a lot of stuff going on there. Yeah. Digital channels in all media handling. Yeah. If you're putting a story out and dealing with the media on a certain story with journalists, your digital content needs to reflect that. There cannot be a difference between them. Yeah. That needs to be coordinated. Yeah. You can't have your spokesperson saying one thing and your digital officer, say, going on the website and putting stuff out which is incoherent. No, that needs to be brought together. That's management. That's management. Yeah. Online tools, internal and external and digital engagement. Yeah. But whatever you're saying externally and digital needs to be the same as internally. If you've got intranets, yeah. Even emailing amongst each other. Yeah. That needs to be coordinated. That's management. Yeah. And it's all on there. I'm not going to spend any more time on this. It is in your book. But all this stuff here needs to be dealt with, needs to be managed. needs to be coordinated to a synergistic, in a synergistic manner, okay? And yet more there, you know, content creation. Often content creation is, I know, is put outside to agency, for agency work. Yeah, I know you're doing that often. But as we'll look at later on, you know, dealing with agencies, that's a management function. Yeah, that's involving money, that's involving contracts. Yeah, do you just devolve that to someone else? So, oh no, there's a contracting department, they do that. Oh, there's a finance department, they do that. No, if you're putting, you know, employing an agency to do your content creation, then yeah, that's management. You need to be involved in the contracting process, the terms of reference that are written for agencies, the financial dealings. Yeah, you need to be involved in that at the very least. The very least. So I know that that should be a big part of your management. Equally, you are producing your own content, hopefully. Yeah, low cost, no cost content. If you're lucky, you will have people who are very digitally savvy who can produce digital content themselves. Yeah, you can all, you know, you've all got digital footprints. You're all producing digital content all the time. Yeah, more sophisticated stuff. Yeah, you might be lucky to have people within your office who are producing reasonably sophisticated content as well. They need to be managed. It needs to be coordinated with any other information that you are putting out to the world. Okay. And of course, insight and evaluation as well. Yeah, monitoring all the time. We will come back to monitoring and the management of monitoring later on. I think there has been and is a big discussion to be had, and I think one of your colleagues who hasn't joined us this week has had a discussion with about this, about, you know, press clippings and media monitoring. What's the difference? Yeah, what do we need nowadays in a modern world? Yeah, press clippings. Once again, press clippings, quite a quaint, old-fashioned concept. Yeah, in the old days of actually clipping out something from the newspaper to show the minister. Yeah, where are we now? So we're going to come back to that, but this is part of what you do in terms of your media engagement. Okay, and further insights and evaluation. Yeah, which we will come back to in terms of the management. So there's a lot of stuff that has to be managed just in the media relations element. And that's before we've even talked about this element as well. When you have longer term, say 3 months, 6 months, 2-year campaigns, which are going on alongside all the stuff that you're doing almost on a regular basis, or certainly over, you know, continuous daily short-term planning in concert with it, with media cycles. Yeah, and also digital media as well. So this can't be forgotten about if you're running campaigns, which some of you will be running campaigns. And we've covered campaign planning a lot. So I'm not going to go into campaign planning again. I'm not going to go over that material. We've done campaign planning a lot. Yeah. But all this, which you've seen before, yeah, I'll just bring it up on the screen. You know, the OASIS, yeah, the objectives, the analysis, the strategy, implementation, scoring. Once that's planned, that needs to be done. Yeah, that implementation bit, yeah, that needs to be done. So, you know, I've spent a lot of time going over with you, you know, hopefully your planning of campaigns henceforth will be pretty good. You'll know exactly what you're trying to achieve, what you want your audiences to actually do, not what you want to do, what your audience wants to do, behavioral change. You'll have gone through a degree of analysis, yeah, of your audiences. If you're doing your job well, that will be quite relatively easy, because if you're doing two-way symmetrical communications, you are listening to what the audience are saying anyway. What are their issues? What you know, what are their hot buttons already? So your analysis should be a lot easier, because you're halfway there if you're a good comms team, communications team. Okay, your strategy, your messaging, yeah, your theory of change, all that. Yeah, you'd have done that. You'd have planned implementation, content and activity matrices. Yeah, you've got all that. and you know how to score it. Well, that's great. It's all on paper. Then you've got to do the doing of it. How do you then manage that entire thing? Yeah. This is something that has to be done alongside your standard day-to-day media relations. Yeah. I won't go through that anymore. Except, yeah, here's where the action is. The tactics. Yeah, the tactics that you are actually employing to run your campaign, and then the measurement of those tactics and feeding back into the system, that feedback loop. Yeah, this is what is going to be managed. Yeah, all this stuff that you'll be doing as part of a campaign. Yeah, the timing of it. Yeah, the content production. We just talked about content production a minute ago. Yeah, who's doing what? Who's paying for what? Yeah, when it goes wrong, who deals with that? Yeah, as in physically, as in there is a production problem. Yeah, they produce content, it's done incorrectly, dealing with that. That's management. Yeah, it's not communications really. That's actually straightforward management. There's a contract out. Contract's been has failed. What are we doing with that? Okay, all this sort of stuff. Displays, printed material, pamphlets, entertainment. Yeah, if you're dealing with possibly a radio show, yeah, a radio soap opera, yeah, running a campaign, yeah, managing who goes in there, actors, yeah, you might be working with actors, yeah, someone's written a script, you're working with script writers possibly, yeah, that's all part of your daily management role. Not daily management role, but it's part of your campaigning management role if that's what you've chosen to do implementation wise. Yeah. Oh, what we'll do is we'll input to a script on a regular radio, very popular radio show. Well, you can plan that, but then how are you going to actually make it happen? Yeah, engaging with script writers, engaging script writers to write for you. Yeah, actors, the actors that are already in the soap opera, maybe new actors, maybe getting a cameo role for a minister or someone else who's famous. Maybe some third-party endorsement comes in. You've got to manage that. You've got to manage that. Yeah, exhibitions, open days. Yeah, physical management as well. Yeah, we'll come back to that a little bit later on. Lobbying. Yeah, lobbying people, standard relationship, handshaking, all that sort of stuff. Some other forms, mass media, we know, electronic, online, we've talked about as well, the digital and the media relations. And then all these content types, which you'll be producing as well. Maybe you won't be producing, but you will, oops, sorry, it's gone a bit too forward. You may not be producing directly, but you will be overseeing. If you want, infographics produced for a campaign, well, you might be able to produce them internally. You might. Yeah. But equally, you might be going out to a graphic design agency. Yeah. There's a lot of engagement needs to go in there. Yeah. The management of that relationship, that contract. Yeah. And also the other ones, video, yes, you might have the ability to produce your own Vox Pops. Vox Pops are very simple, small camera, off you go. You're using your mobile phone, great. If it's more sophisticated, once again, you're dealing with an agency, you're having to manage that relationship. Yeah, that hard business relationship. It's not a nice and soft and fluffy relationship, it's a business relationship. Okay, that's all part of your management. Yeah. And then, of course, there's risk management as well as part of your campaign. Yeah, you will hopefully have done as part of your campaign planning a degree of risk analysis. Certainly, yeah, where you will have identified what can go wrong, what's the likelihood of it going wrong, what's the impact of it going wrong, and then the question, what can we do about it? Well, the what can we do about it might be during a campaign, actually what you are doing about it to manage a certain risk. Yeah. What are you actually doing to manage certain risks which you have already identified? Or are you just going to go, well, we identified them, we're aware of them, we're not going to do anything about them, it's just good to know they're there? Well, you'd be very remiss if you knew there was a risk there and you knew there was something you could do to mitigate against it and then didn't do anything to mitigate the risk of a campaign going wrong, it being misconstrued, then someone would look at you and go, you're not managing this very well. Yeah. Remember, all these things were part of doing the risk analysis. Yeah, how responsive are you to the audience's needs? Is the SWOT, how much effort's being put in? Yeah, managing effort. Yeah, over time. Yeah, do we surge during a campaign? Do we have high points in which there's a lot of activity and not? Cost of implementation. Yeah, where are the costs coming from? Are we going to be running over budget on a campaign? That's your responsibility to look at. You can't expect the finance department to know what your budget's doing in your campaign. You're the ones who've got to know that. Yeah, that actually this part of the campaign cost much more than we anticipated. You know, we thought it was 15,000 km. It's worked out at 25,000 km. Okay, what do we do to manage that? Do we need to seek more money, or do we cut something else out of it? You're managing that. Finance, they're not interested. They're running finance for the ministry. They're not interested in your little campaign. So you've got to manage that. Yeah. Impact on others. Yeah. Is there going to be any detrimental impact? Is someone going to misconstrue your campaign, the way it's been put out? Can it be seen to be prejudicial towards some people? Yeah, biased, whatever it is. What third-party support have you got? Yeah, is that reliable third-party support? Can it be made reliable? How can we manage a relationship over the long term with a third party, maybe a celebrity? Yeah, timescales. You need to shift timescales. Just move things around. Things you planned in 2 months' time, so they need to be brought forward, put back. Several risks which you are constantly you should be managing, certainly monitoring for, and then managing, responding to. It's not good enough that you go, oh yeah, we know of the risks. Well, if you know of the risks and they can be managed, you should be managing them. Yeah, and that applies really. I mean, we're talking about communications management, but that applies for any project or any work that's being done in the ministry. You will just have certain specific risks which are special to the communications and the running of a campaign. So you need to be doing this all the time, monitoring for those risks and reacting to them, having hopefully identified them, what they might be in the first place. This is your job. No one else is going to do it for you. Yeah, there's not a nice risk management department sitting somewhere in the ministry who'll be going, don't worry, we'll watch out for your campaign. Nope. They don't have the depth of knowledge of what the campaign's about and how communication works to be able to do that. That's your job. Okay. So with campaigning, if you're running campaigns, you've got a lot to be thinking of as well as your day-to-day continuous media relations. Yeah, running background briefings because you're trying to be more proactive. Yeah, running your digital content which is aligned with your media relations. Yeah, also making sure that you're still engaged in the strategic policy making area, the strategic communications. There's a lot to be done in often very small units. Yeah, this is why when when you have a two-person communication department in a reasonably big ministry, you have to be very realistic with your seniors as to what you can actually realistically do, and be brutally honest and say, look, I know what a communications office should be doing, but if there's only two people, you can't. And boss, what am I going to chop? Yeah, what are my realistic terms of reference for this communications office? Yeah, because if you're spending all your time just firefighting and reactive media engagement, and you have no spare capacity, then either you've got to subtly change the way you're managed and where you manage communication, or you need more resources. And I'd say if you really, really are strapped, changing your management protocols and processes will only take you so far. Being brutally honest about what you can and can't do. But let's go back. Let's assume that that you have a reasonably well resourced communication office. Yeah. There is one thing we do need to think about, and it's a little discussion I want you to have, okay, is that we do have media, we do have campaigns, yeah, but we also have the digital and social media elements all the time as well. My question to you is, yeah, how well, in reality, not an aspiration, in reality, how well are media relations and campaign planning, so the action bit there, how well are they coordinated with your digital and social media? Or are they, to a degree, sometimes a little bit siloed? Okay, so that's the question I'm posing now, and I'm going to give you what time is it now? I'm going to give you 5 minutes. No, sorry, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. I'm going to give you 10 minutes to discuss that question. Okay. If you need to take a snapshot of it, yeah, but that's the question. Yeah, how well are your media relations and campaigning? How well are they coordinated with your digital and social media? Are they locked together and, you know, highly synergized, or are they actually a little bit loose? Okay, that's the question. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. Once again, you're going to go back to your normal, the syndicates, which were randomly assigned. They're not the same syndicates you do on the LMS. It's just randomly assigned. Okay, so I'm going to go back to breakout rooms and open all the rooms. Is everybody happy with the instructions? Anybody got any questions or points? Okay. Discuss at your heart's content. I'll pop into the rooms and see what's going on. Otherwise, I'll see you all back here in 10 minutes.
Okay, hello everyone. Thanks, you're all back. Thank you very much. Okay, so the question was quite simply, just make sure you can hear me. Everybody can hear me all right? Yeah? Good, okay. So the question, I just check I've got my interpreters with me. Messia, Boyana, are you there?
Yes, we're here.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. That's cool. Right. Question was, how well are, on the one hand, media relations and campaigning, how well are they coordinated with digital and social media? So over to you for comments. You've had discussions. Tell me, are they locked together like that anything happens in media and campaigning, it's always reflected in digital and vice versa? And if digital is picking up comments, does it feed back into your media relations? Or do they kind of do their own thing and just hope for the best, and sometimes they come together? Over to you, comments. Daniela.
Evo, mogu li ja?
Kick it off. Oh, Mimi, go on. Mimi, you started. Yeah, Mimi. Yeah, please.
Pa zajedno smo u grupi.
We're together in the group, Daniela and I and other colleagues. Of course, colleagues who have well-developed digital networks and media in Republika Srpska shared their experiences with us, who still, unfortunately, do not have well-developed digital channels. I just wanted to say that we cannot actually answer this question because we are still in the process of establishing our social media presence. We only have the website for the time being, and it is now quite well coordinated, but insufficient. We were happy to get the Instagram and Facebook profiles for the crisis staff for the pandemic. And we have good experiences there, but generally speaking, our digital presence is not yet well developed. That is why I would like to hear from our colleagues from the Republika Srpska who have been doing an excellent job in the digital domain, and what we shared during the discussion was very useful for me.
Okay, well, before you comment, Daria, steady.
Ne znam gdje je Daniela, da li je tu, nije tu.
Daniela, yeah.
Da, ja se nešto slabo vidim nešto.
I just want to pick on something you said there. Sometimes, you have organizations which can have really good digital capabilities, and they can be really, really good in their media relations. But that doesn't mean to say that they come together, and form synergy. So don't necessarily assume just because they've got really good digital output and they've got really good media relations that it works to its maximum output. I'm not saying that that's the case in Republika Srpska at all, but I just wanted to pick you up on that, Mimi, just to make sure it's not guaranteed just because you've got one good thing and the other good thing, they talk together.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, Daniela or Daria.
Upravo to koliko sam shvatila iz naše kratke diskusije.
Yes, exactly. As much as I was able to get from this short discussion, their synergy is very good.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Let me just check if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Jem?
Yeah.
Ja ću govoriti ime institucija i vlada Republike.
I will speak on behalf of the institutions. The government of the Republika Srpska has recently developed its Facebook and Twitter presence. Our institution is active on Facebook and Twitter and has Android application and our website. And the synergy is quite good, but we also have some special content exclusively for Facebook and Twitter, infographics and similar materials. Slavica Škoro asked who is doing it, and to be honest, I trained myself for it. I'm not a graphic designer by profession, but I did some self-training. And as far as Facebook and Twitter are concerned, if we are publishing a press release, then we are trying to achieve synergy on Facebook and Twitter, and we have a more detailed press release on the website, and key messages go to Twitter and Instagram, and then we link to our website. We noticed that on Facebook, we have greater interaction with citizens, and Twitter is mainly oriented to journalists, non-governmental organizations. So we are trying to adjust our Twitter communication. It's shorter and it has to be more effective with shorter sentences. Also, talking about the comments, we are trying to answer all messages we receive through Facebook, and we had around 70 messages last year through Facebook. We also have email inbox, and it's a lot of work, but we think it's inevitable and very important. And social media can be a very good source for traditional media. When we are publishing something on social media, traditional media will pick it up, they will use it as their source, they follow us, and then this automatically creates space for us in traditional media as well. If we are conducting a campaign on, for example, International Day of Children suffering from malignant disease, if we want to place special emphasis on something, then we do it especially for Twitter and Facebook to inform the citizens of their rights. We don't put it on website, but only on our digital channels. There's probably something else that I forgot, but that would be the gist of it.
Daria, thank you very much for that. And it's congratulations, big thumbs up from me, because there you are. You self-trained. You saw that there was a need and thought, you know what, it can't be that difficult. I'll train myself to do this. And absolutely. And you did the right thing. So you don't need to be constantly going out to someone else and going, how do you do this? Can you produce this content? You're doing a degree of content yourself. So great respect for you to do that. Absolutely. And I think, the other entities can maybe look to what Darius just said, the setting up of Facebook and Twitter, who are probably both of those. Okay, you've got TikTok and Instagram. They're very dynamic. So they're rapidly happening all the time. And as Darius said, it takes a lot of work to keep up with what's going on. But I think, as Darius was intimating as well, if you're dealing with your social media, but your journalists, your traditional media, your media relations element, your journalists nowadays, they are very linked up. And they will pick up stories from your output. Yeah. The journalists will pick up information from your social media and digital output and then work with it and get it back into the traditional media. So so journalists are operating synergistically, and therefore you have to as well. Yeah. And that does demand a degree of coordination. Yeah. Working in the digital space, seeing what's putting stuff out on Facebook, seeing what's coming back, seeing journalists pick it up, coming back round circle and asking questions of you and the minister based upon what you put out on social media. Yeah. And also going the background as well. Yeah. Information coming in through social media and back in. Also, maybe the minister doing interviews or making statements. You putting them out not only through traditional media, because journalists have interviewed a minister, you put that out through social media as well, and it being linked into anything that's going out through your traditional media feeds to your publics, predominantly journalists, links into what's going out on your social media channels, and there isn't a difference of tone, difference of information, that it's linked together. That is quite demanding. Yeah, I think as Daria was saying, yeah, it does require a degree of internal management to make sure that you are making sure that all your channels are saying the same thing. Yeah. Anybody else want to comment from the other room? No? We're all pretty good? Daniela. Yeah, Daniela?
Hi. Evo me.
Yeah.
Pa ništa, mi smo već u našoj grupi.
In our group, we discussed on this topic, and I fully agree with what Daria has said. Actually, we are functioning similarly in the government. The government of the Republika Srpska has had its digital channels for over a year now, and it was very helpful during the crisis we've had. Daria referenced a situation in 2014 when we had huge floods, and the difference between then and now when we had the coronavirus crisis. We prepare certain content exclusively for digital media, and we do not disseminate those to the traditional media. But the government is well represented in the media, and we've achieved that the media are now following our social media channels, and they take over the content. We don't have to specifically remind them that they can go there. Sometimes they see something on Twitter and Facebook and then get in touch to expand on that story. For colleagues who don't have this digital presence yet, my sincere recommendation is that they do it. Our experiences are very positive, and it helped us to open up the government to the public, and to use the input and feedback we receive from the public to see, to measure the public opinion, and to feel the atmosphere out there. So the institutions that are not on social media, it's not really a question of should they or shouldn't they. It's just a matter of time. They have to. It's a necessity. And if you want to, if you want for your message to be well distributed, well received, you have to use it. And I think that the pandemic has showed us all the future, which is digital. As limiting as it is in some aspects, it's definitely the future. And I think that it will be, it will feature heavily in all aspects of communications in the future. We also faced a lot of discussion about whether we should be on the social media or not. Initially, the reaction was a resolute no, but when we started with it, we've had very positive experience. Yes, criticism is sometimes constructive and welcome. And to conclude, when we spoke about the issue of reactive and proactive approach, I can link that to this particular question. Digital media has helped us reduce the reactive part of our work. The big problem between reactive and proactive is that we sometimes switch unknowingly from proactive to reactive because our message gets misconstrued, or we don't get our message across well. And social media has helped us to be proactive, especially in crisis situations, and to reduce the reactive aspect. We've had online press conferences during the coronavirus crisis, and always in the end of the press conferences, we would advise the public to get their information from official accounts of the government, to refrain from checking personal announcements on social networks and so on. We also created a website on coronavirus where we answered every question or comment we've received, and we have a lot of traffic on that website. I think owing to the fact that we were very responsive there. So a strong yes to the digital media, and I invite our colleagues to contact us for further experience sharing, and we can tell them about what we've learned from our own mistakes. And I think they shouldn't wait a minute longer to start to set up their digital channels.
Thank you, Daniela. And thank you. There's the offer. There's the offer. You know, Republika Srpska have worked hard to develop this capability. Learn the lessons. You know, forget whether you're from Republika Srpska or Federation, state, or whatever ministry. You're communicators. You are professional communicators. So deal with each other at that level. You know, Daniela and her colleagues have offered to say, look, come and speak to us. We've learned the hard way through crisis. There are some lessons to be learned. So take up that offer. Take up that offer. It's interesting you mentioned about crisis. I think, and Mimi, you mentioned it as well. You know, there's a saying, you know, never waste a good crisis. And I think, you know, COVID has forced you and lots of other people around the world to, you know, adopt communication styles, which, you know, they should have adopted maybe years ago, but it's forced them to do it. Yeah. So, you know, keep that going now. It's, you know, hopefully it's broken down some of the stigma and worries in government about dealing with digital, because you've had to deal with digital over the crisis. And interestingly, Daniela said about, you know, digital has, in a way, it's reduced the need to be reactive. You can afford with digital to be more proactive, and that's because, let's face it, you know, you own the media. Yeah, it's owned media. So you have a degree of control. So if you have a degree of control, you can be more proactive with putting information out there. I mean, there's a saying in English, you know, especially in a crisis, if there's a problem, the best thing you need to do is to own it. Yeah, own the problem, own the crisis. And this matches up nicely with the fact that you own the media. So own the problem, use your own media, which is digital. And as long as it's linked up to your traditional legacy media, because journalists will still be journalists and lots of people will still be looking at, you know, your traditional media, if it's linked together, it can be very, very powerful. Yeah. So thank you very much for that. And take up, the others of you, take up that offer to speak to Daniela and her colleagues. There are lessons to be learned. And vice versa, I'm sure. Okay? And vice versa. Yeah. The point being is it does take time and effort and management space, yeah, to make this work, the synergy between social media, digital, and media and campaigning. Okay. Right, it's almost 1 o'clock, so I'm aware that you will want to be heading off, maybe to lunch or whatever. We were going to be talking next, but we can start do this next time. When we come back next time, we're going to look at internal communications and also strategic engagement, but we're also going to start off with looking at the aspect of time. Yeah, managing time in the communication environment, and how much time do you spend on certain things in communication environment, and looking at others as well, and how they compare their time and effort. Okay, so we'll be looking at that. But before the next lesson, which is going to be on Monday, as I said right at the start, we are going to continue doing the examination of management culture and how it affects communication. Yeah. So on the LMS, there is assignment 3A, which is very similar to assignment 2A, except that instead of doing the top half, those 4, this time you're going to look at the bottom half. Deciding, trusting, disagreeing, scheduling. Yeah, remember, you've all as individuals given these rankings. Now I'm asking you as syndicates to discuss them in more detail. Yeah, to come up with a composite or an agreed ranking, and to explain why these indicators might affect the management of communication. Okay, so it's the same task, except before you were looking at communicating, evaluating, persuading, leading. Now you're going to do the same: deciding, trusting, disagreeing, and scheduling. Yeah. Hopefully, I know there were some problems with the discussion groups and the chat groups. I think I've established them now. They should work much better. That if you do put anything in a discussion group, we'll email everybody else in the discussion group that a new post has been put up there. But you can use WhatsApp if you want. Use whatever system you want to discuss as a as a group. So submissions back for that one before Monday, please. Okay. So that's your assignment. And next time we'll be looking more at time, internal communications, strategic engagement, and then ultimately we will be hitting how culture which eat strategy for breakfast affect your communication management. Okay. Are there any questions or points or issues before I let you go? Mimi, please. Yeah.
Vrlo kratko, samo pojašnjenje, Blago. Mi smo...
Just to clarify briefly, a few of us, when we worked on the first assignment we've managed, these were the questions asked in the anonymous pre-session survey, and we were from different institutions, and the cultures are different. So we didn't want to devise a group assessment, and I think that this group assessment will not be possible here either. What we can do is provide our opinion on the questions asked, but not give a group conclusion.
You make a very good point. Yes, okay. I can see that some institutions may have a very different culture. I'd say that actually, even Bosnia has its own. If you look across Bosnia, it will have a management culture at a certain level, which is common across all organizations. And actually, the original culture map does actually look at different countries and sees how they compare to each other. So yes, you are right. In between management organizations, there may be cultures that can be quite different. Okay, I'll take that at that point. I'd say if you can come up with a joint score, then great. But what's more important, the question that's more important is why that indicator might affect communication management. Yeah, in a good way and a bad way. So it depends on your opinion. And in your answers, you can put, well, yeah, it's good because of this, but it's also bad because of that. Yeah, so the more important is answer the question, why.
Dejan i ja koji smo se čuli i tako, mi nismo imali problem s tim.
Yes, we didn't have a problem in explaining the whys, just coming up with this joint assessment.
Yeah.
As a score.
I won't criticize you if you don't come up with a scoring amongst yourselves. I will go fair enough. But yeah, the why, because that's what we want to dig into, really. Okay. Super. Well, thank you very much for your time. Unless anybody's got any other questions, I will see you again on Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy your weekend. And I'll see you then. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good weekend. Bye now.
Doviđenja.
Ciao.
Bye.